Well, hello, hello. We have Mary Brown with us today, a website expert who's helped companies from across the globe. I wanted to ask you, I know a lot of businesses we talk to, they come to us and they say, like, my website isn't working. And maybe they've had like a website for a long time that's really old, like you're almost diving back into the early 2000s, or maybe they even did like a really nice looking recent redesign, but for some reason they're just not getting leads from their website. And it's a lot of times not businesses that are struggling. Maybe they're doing great, they have a lot of great word of mouth, they're getting clients, but they just want to grow that extra level and they're saying, I'm not getting what I could be getting from my website. Is that something you hear from clients? And if you do, where do you even start with that? Because I feel like a website not working can mean a lot of different things.
It's true. And it's so funny when I heard you formulate this question, I immediately came into my head. I just talked to someone just yesterday, a prospect on a sales call, and they were telling me that very thing. I hear this all the time, but it is so timely because they said their site is 5 years old, so not ancient. We're not talking early 2000s. But they went to an agency, had the agency do a website redesign, did a strategy process, went through the whole deal, and they said, our website's not working. Exact thing that you were asking about. So, yes, I hear it. I hear it all the time. Heard it yesterday. And it does mean a lot of different things. It can mean a lot of different things. And I always have a million questions when I hear that, right? So, as a web strategist, I might hear something like, I'm going to ask them a question like, okay, what's not working exactly? What is the expectation? What pain are you feeling? And that could be any number of things, right? They might say, we're not getting enough traffic. Or they might say, we're getting traffic, but we're not getting enough leads. Or they might say, we're getting leads, but they're all terrible. So you're exactly right. We really need to dig in and find out, what does not working mean? What do they expect it to mean? And what do they need to really, understand the true problem and dig in to find a solution?
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like it could be different for each different company that comes. It's not always like, oh, it's probably one of these like two things. It sounds like it's different for each company. So what are some different directions you can go, even with all those different like possibilities? Would it be a full redesign, optimizing the things you have, both, something else? What would that be?
Yeah. So I can use this prospect yesterday as a really great example. So one of the things that they told me that they were struggling with was they said, our messaging is just all wrong. And they said, it doesn't reflect who we are. It's not speaking to our prospects. We think that's why people aren't converting. And I had to take a step back with them and say, okay, just because your messaging is wrong doesn't mean you need a website redesign, right? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need to go through maybe a messaging workshop where you're identifying, all of those key points. Who's the hero of your story? Who is your main character? What do they truly want? What is the pain that they're feeling? And then totally rebrand that kind of messaging and just apply it to your existing website. That's an option. Sometimes that's what people need. When I dug in with this particular prospect, though, they were saying, we don't actually have a buyer's journey on our website. So when we don't have any kind of true buyer's journey, that's a bigger issue, right? It's not just updating messaging. That's saying, okay, we don't have the right navigation. We don't have the right website architecture. We don't have the right pages. And then you dig in further and they say, okay, well, even on the pages that we have, we're not telling the right story. We don't have the right calls to action. So they didn't even have the right page strategy. So these are all different elements of a website. And when you kind of say all of these things are wrong, then you really need to start over and start with a new strategy and attack that architecture, attack that page strategy. So you really need to dive in and figure out how deep that goes, but it can be a copy fix, could be an SEO fix if you've just never done SEO, but everything else, the journey feels pretty smart. So it depends. I know everyone loves that answer, but it really depends.
Yeah, no, and it is a good answer in that context. Do you ever so yeah, you talked about how, you ask these clients some questions and they'll tell you a little bit about their company and their website. Do you ever hit a point where they're telling you one thing and they're like, "Here's the problem," but you're looking at it and you've done this with hundreds of companies, so you actually see that there's another problem. Are there kind of some of those things where people run into those misconceptions?
Yes. She could tell from my face that it was going to be yes, but and this usually leads to more questions, Austin. So somebody says to me, "We're not getting enough traffic," and I might say, "Okay, well, how long does it take your website to load?" And they'll go, "Huh?" And I say, "Yeah." So sometimes a website might be so bogged down by media, video, other elements that, it's taking 10 seconds to load and people aren't even loading it. They're just leaving. Or maybe it's not being ranked because the site performance is so bad. Or someone will say, "We're getting a ton of traffic, but we're not getting enough leads." And I'm saying, okay, yes, you are getting a lot of traffic, but is it the right traffic? How are you qualifying that it's the right traffic? Are you writing content, or are you writing pop culture content that's, a hot topic of the day? So it's bringing people to your site, but those aren't people who would ever convert for you. Or maybe they'll say, "We're getting a ton of leads, but they're all terrible." And then again, I'm wondering about their traffic, or I'm saying, okay, you're getting traffic, but are they getting the right education? So maybe it's the website content problem, or it's our, we don't have a learning center. We're not answering questions. So all the time, you can never take anything at face value is the moral of the story here. And you've got to, as I keep saying, dig in, find out what might be behind the issue. Because, and I know like it's crazy that I'm saying this, but sometimes you don't need a redesign. You need to fix something else. There's a different kind of issue going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So with these clients, from what you've been saying, it sounds like every client's different. You can go a ton of different directions, some more intensive changes, some more messaging copy changes. What does it kind of look like when someone starts working with you and your team here at Impact? Because it's a multiple month journey that people go on to level up their website. What does that kind of look like from beginning to end? And I know there are different directions, so maybe just choose one of those directions and kind of talk about what that would look like.
Sure, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the different directions because, yes, just like how there isn't only one problem, there are definitely different solutions. But one of my favorite solutions is that deep dive on strategy, right? Where we can revamp. And we do launch pads in Website Mastery where we are really starting over from the ground up. And where that process begins, that I love, is with a discovery session, really. So once we know that we need to do that redesign and we need to really overhaul all the strategy, we have this discovery session where we have clients answer a questionnaire, and then I can dig in on all of their answers. And I can really understand their business. I can understand their marketing. I can understand their goals. And this is so crucial because we've got to get it right. And so many agencies, I know this prospect I was talking to yesterday said, we've done the agency thing. We've had them do a website. And not only did I feel like they weren't necessarily asking the right questions, but this blew my mind a little bit. They said, "I don't think we gave the right answers. And how do we
Mm.
know that we're not giving the right answers?" But because you need someone experienced enough to push back and challenge and really do what's in their best interest. And they feel like that didn't happen. So they didn't get the right website. And that totally broke my heart because they said, "We tried, we answered the questions." So that discovery is hugely important. It is one of my favorite pieces of the puzzle. And then we go from there into a sitemap strategy session, right? So we're totally looking at that architecture. We're looking at the navigation. We're saying, what pages do we need? What pages do we not need? We're going through a content inventory to review where all the pages are going to go, what's staying, and decide what that buyer's journey via the navigation should look like. And mapping all that out first, right? So we decide all the pages we need. Once we know all the pages we need, we can then determine what the page strategy should be. So for different page types, let's say our home page, we've got a service page, we've got a solution page. Those are going to have different strategies for each one because we want to make sure the story is correct. We want to make sure we're moving people to the right next step. We've got the right calls to action. We're doing everything in the right order for people at the right time. So we nail down those page strategies, go over those with the client, get that set, feeling really great about it. And then comes the content writing process. So once we know what our page is going to look like, and the designer will go and design the beautiful piece of the site, right? The client's working really hard on writing the right copy. So we don't write copy, but we will review our client copy and provide guidance on that, how to make sure that you are putting your reader at the center of the story, making them the hero, and the focus is not on you. Making sure that the SEO is tight for the page, right? Reviewing for best practices. And then once we've got content in place, then we can start populating the site. So we can start building out all the different pages and then using those page strategies to create templates, cloning those, building everything out, getting the copy that they work so hard in, all the images, the videos into the site, and then building it through until launch.
Sweet. That's awesome. Thanks for breaking that down. I know like a lot of our answers are so it depends. So I feel like kind of breaking that down help people see, even if they do have different directions, how their business can fit into that and how that
Yeah,
works.
absolutely. And it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter, the size of your site. If the strategy is what you need, right? And if you want the design to give people a cohesive picture of who you are and what your brand is, then yeah, that process should be the same across the board.
That's awesome. Do you have like a visual example you could share with us of a company you've helped and
I
something you enjoyed about the
do.
process?
Yeah, I do. So I love showing this particular company because they did such a phenomenal job on their website. They worked so hard on this. So this is Combined HCM. HCM means human capital management. They offer things like payroll, HR administration, employee benefits, things like that. And when they came to us, one of the biggest problems they had, and I actually have not mentioned this yet, but one of the biggest problems they had was that they couldn't use their existing site. The marketing team could not edit their site, which is always so heartbreaking to me.
Because it was
Um,
held by an agency or
yeah,
oh,
so
okay.
they were working with another agency, and it was just not marketer friendly, and it was not easy to edit, not change copy. The back end was just not user friendly at all, and so they were kind of held hostage, which always breaks my heart when that happens. So that was one of their main focuses, was making sure that the back end was totally user friendly for anyone on the marketing team. Making sure that they could change the layout. They had control over buttons, forms, articles, all of that stuff. They also wanted to make sure that they had a really robust learning center because they prioritized education for their prospects, which I loved. Of course, it's a big tenet of Endless Customers, but making sure that they had that one-stop shop for all of the most important resources in the buyer's journey that is filterable, that you could sort by keyword here. So creating this type of learning center was another huge priority for them. Um, and also making sure that their website had video and had, um, here we go. They do a really phenomenal job with having videos on important pages so that people could, see them and hear them before they ever met them, right? They know how critical it is for people to be able to connect with someone virtually, right, before they ever get into the sales process. And their current site just wasn't equipped for that. They couldn't do that well. So now on that crucial landing page, right, their schedule a meeting landing page, they have Jessica here, who's wonderful, walking people through what this process looks like, right? What happens if I schedule a meeting that I can do here myself, right? They've got a self-scheduler here, which is great. And it was a new addition to their website. And she's walking them through all of the expectations about what's going to happen. So those were just a few things on this website. Also cleaning up the nav too, because for this particular company, they had people services and they have software solutions. So they wanted to make sure that journey was really obvious and clear between the differences in what they offered. So they did a phenomenal job of executing on this site and really making sure the journey was clear and that they had every possible resource on here to help people along the way.
Awesome. That's super cool. And it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Love what they did with the site. So if somebody is watching this or checking this out, and they're like, I need to work with Mary Brown on my website, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, I am in Impact Plus. That's our community that you can join. If you ever have a question that you want to ask me, you can find me there. Or you can, we do a fun thing called a website throwdown. If you have a website that you want us to throw down, which means we will do a webinar where we go through every aspect of your site and we'll tell you where you can improve. That's another fun way to get involved with web. Or you could find me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Mary. Thanks for sharing all this today, and we're looking forward to hearing from you in the future.
Yeah, anytime.